straight money over blitzes.
Imagine a world where you're in the late rounds of your startup draft for your dynasty leagues, and you're staring Drew Lock and Sam Darnold in the face, and you're having the debate with yourself which direction you should go, and you think to yourself, okay, Drew Lock at least has some stability. He should at least have the chance to play next year and start. We don't know what's going to happen with Darnold. So you draft Drew Lock, and a few hours later, Darnold gets traded to a fantasy gold mine in the Carolina Panthers. Pain. But besides my personal struggles and my pain, we have some other stuff to get into today. So let's get into it. Let's talk about it. Welcome to the Money Over Blitzes podcast. My name's Kyle, and today I want to talk about that trade as well as go over part 2 of my rookie quarterback coverage. If you missed part 1, that was my previous episode, and you can find that over on the YouTube channel at Money Over Blitzes, as well as now on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Pretty much wherever you listen to podcasts, it's now available. And if you do end up going over there, be sure to leave us a review. Let me know what you think. Head over to our Twitter page at Money Over Blitzes. Give us a follow if you want to continue following the action on a day-to-day basis. And yeah, let's get going with it. So obviously the big news of the week is Sam Darnold moving from the Jets to Carolina, trade that just went down yesterday, actually as of this recording. The Jets received a 2021 sixth round pick as well as a 2022 second and fourth round pick for next year. Of course, this means big things for Sam Darnold in terms of his development, I think. He goes from basically the equivalent of football Siberia in the Jets and Adam Gase, what was Adam Gase, and comes over to Carolina, new coaching staff with Matt Rule and Joe Brady being there a year with their system and their program being implemented, goes over to DJ Moore, an old friend in Robbie Anderson, and Christian McCaffrey. And then whoever else the Carolina Panthers decide to add at the draft, because they still have a top pick. They kept their first round pick. So whatever they end up doing with that pick, maybe they take a Kyle Pitts or some other weapon, all the more for Sam Darnold to work with. Great for his development. He's still in the last year of his rookie deal, and obviously he's still really young. He's 23, 24. So plenty of time for him to really kind of show what he can be in this league. And for Carolina, it gives them kind of a second chance at another quarterback. It's a little bit of a project for them, a reclamation project, but they didn't pay too much to make the deal happen. A lot of speculation was made prior to Darnold moving where the Jets wanted a 1 or a 2. That wasn't going to happen. No team was going to pay that kind of price for a quarterback who, of course, he's obviously young and has shown some talent and some promise in the league, but hadn't really broken out in any big way. Of course, he had a couple things going against him, being on the Jets and not having a great surrounding cast, but didn't do too much in his favor to really warrant that kind of price tag. So now he's in a new environment in Carolina. You can really see what Darnold maybe has to offer. Carolina's going to have a little bit of work to do on their end, having to undo a lot of the bad habits and bad wiring that went down while Darnold was in New York, seeing ghosts and whatnot. Of course, he had that comment from a couple years ago. Still bothers me to this day. Of course, being a New England fan, I enjoyed it, when it happened live, but at least for his development, didn't look great. Shouldn't be seeing ghosts out on the field. Not a good look. But here we are now. For Teddy Bridgewater, not a great look for him. Speaking of looks, and he was given permission by Carolina to seek a trade, or if he wanted to take a backup role, he can do that as well. But in terms of his long-term prospects, I don't know what to really expect from him anymore. It's tough because he had a good year last year, the year before, excuse me, at New Orleans and covering for Drew Brees, filling in for him when he went out. And of course, he had a good surrounding cast around him, but he came over to Carolina, had a good surrounding cast, and just didn't really move the needle for Matt Rule or really for anybody involved. Um, you know, first year being in a new system, maybe he could cut him some kind of slack, but it just didn't seem to work out very well. So it seemed like the writing was kind of on the wall for Teddy towards the end of the year, and obviously that's kind of come home to roost as far as Carolina making this move now. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens at the start of next year or the start of this year. See how Darnold plays out. It looks like he's going to end up being the starter coming into the year, and Teddy either backing him up or going on to another team and pursuing another opportunity. So we'll have to see how that plays out. So that was really it in terms of newsworthy topics. Now it's time to move on to, while we're talking about quarterbacks, part two of our rookie quarterback coverage and my kind of analysis of this class. Uh, at last episode, we talked about my top three quarterbacks in this class. Now we're going to go through really the last three I think that are worth talking about in this class. And first up in this list is Trey Lance. Now he's 6'4", 226, and comes from North Dakota State. And he didn't play this year, really. He only played the one game, the showcase game. I'm not going to put too much stock into that game. He looked okay, but in a COVID year, had a lot of rust to shake off, didn't really get any kind of game action, obviously. So in 2019, he played in 16 games. He had 2,786 yards passing, 28 touchdowns. Of course, the big thing that a lot of people talk about is the 0 interceptions. Of course, that's great to have. Some luck goes into that, but it's good to see that he was at least making some, for the most part, really good decisions. He might have got lucky on some throws, but to not throw any interceptions, you still have to make a good amount of throws. So, of course, he did that. He has a strong arm, can make most, if not all, the throws when you're watching film. Of course, you're in the college world, you're dealing with wider hash marks. So, what that means is in the NFL, you have more narrow hash marks that the ball can move from side to side anytime a play either goes to the extreme left or the extreme right. For the next play, comes back to that edge hash. And in the pros, we're talking about a width of about 18 and a half feet in between the two middle hashes. In college, that's actually 40 feet. So you have a lot more field to cover when you're on those extreme ends of the hash for quarterbacks to then make, more difficult throws. That's just a side note for anybody that's interested, but main point, Trey Lance has a really strong arm, can make any throw on the field that he really wants to. He's a strong runner as well. He actually ended up having 1,100 rushing yards in 2019, so he ran the ball quite a bit on a lot of read option type plays, a lot of, kind of dives up the middle, and the offense kind of ran. Of course, it ran through him because he's the quarterback, but they had a lot of design runs for him in order to use that skill set, that part of his game. So another thing, he comes from a pro style offense, so he did a lot of under center work. It wasn't so much a spread type offense. And of course, he has the athletic ability to work in a spread or option style offense, considering they ran those plays for him in college. Big knock on him, of course, is it's a very limited sample size. He only played in 18 games in college. So how that's going to transition over to the NFL, who knows? I think he'll end up most likely probably having to sit out the first season and maybe take a step back and watch the game and see how it develops for him to kind of help his own personal development. But it also just depends on the coaching that he gets and what they end up doing with him in terms of how he needs to learn the offense and learn the game. Does the 18 games that he played in college, is that going to be a really big knock on him in terms of his development, or is he going to be ready to go pretty much right out the gate? Time will tell as far as that goes and the program he ends up being at. Now, in terms of a landing spot for him, I think San Francisco would make a lot of sense. That would be really beneficial to him and all of us, really, as fantasy owners. I think that'd be really appealing for him to land there. But it would be good for him if they could keep Jimmy Garoppolo for another season and let Lance sit to just watch Jimmy G play as long as he stays healthy, of course. Another good spot would be Atlanta. Of course, you have Matt Ryan still there, so again, Trey Lance could sit behind Matt Ryan and just take in the offense for what it is, and that would really help his development. Or even Detroit, if he manages to fall that far, I could see him landing at Detroit with Jared Goff there. You have a veteran to sit behind and watch, and just let Trey Lance learn and develop and gain that experience, and then eventually let his talents take over for everything that we saw in college. That should translate to the pros no problem, and let him really flourish wherever he ends up going. The next guy I want to talk about is Mac Jones out of Alabama. He is 6'3" and weighs 217 pounds. Played in 13 games this past season. Passed for 4,500 yards, 41 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions. Of course, had the monster season that he probably would have won the Heisman if it wasn't for his teammate Devontae Smith taking it and him blowing up of his own accord, of course. But back to Mac. He has great leadership skills. Devontae Smith personally vouched for him over Tua when he was interviewed during the Senior Bowl week. So he got the endorsement from Devontae Smith. Maybe that was just his teammate, helping another teammate out when it comes to, his draft stock and looking good for scouts. But I think there is some credit to it. I've haven't heard anything bad about Mac Jones, and everything I've heard has really just been for the positive. He's a quick study. Another thing that was brought up at the Senior Bowl is how quickly he's able to pick up an offense and really run with it. So I don't have any worries as far as that goes in him transitioning over to the pros. I think wherever he ends up going, it'll be a good fit, and I think he can be a true professional and play the position really well. He has a good arm, although the ball does die in midair sometimes on deeper throws. I did see that on film a little bit, but he's, like I said, a quick study. He does get knocked for playing with the best players in college football that college has to offer, but to me that just means that he, being in the SEC, he's also playing against the best competition. So to me that kind of goes hand in hand, right? So you have kind of the best weapons that college has to offer being in Alabama, but you're also playing against other top schools in the SEC. You're playing against other guys that are going to be in this same draft with you and is going to be in competition on Sundays. So that doesn't scare me off from selecting a Mac Jones either late in the first round or second round of rookie drafts in your Superflex drafts. But I think he's going to be a good prospect for whoever ends up drafting him. And I think a good landing spot for Mac would be, as much as it's kind of a personal bias for me, I think it would be New England is a good spot if he could manage to fall to pick 15, or if the Patriots decide they want to trade up. I think him being a quick study and really being able to learn offenses pretty quickly and getting it, everyone seems to feel that the New England offense is super complicated. We've had veteran receivers come into New England and for one reason or another just couldn't get on the same page with Brady, or just couldn't get the offense in general, whether it was Chad Johnson, Reggie Wayne, etc. It just never seemed to click for certain receivers. So I think Mac's a smart kid. He should be able to at least pick up the offense. If not, we scale it down for him a little bit. But I don't really see that being an issue for him. And of course, you have the Alabama connection with Bill Belichick and Nick Saban. So there's been quite a few, drafting of players from Alabama because of whether it's just insider information with Nick Saban. They have a good relationship, so I trust that process for the most part. And of course, Bill Belichick showed up at Mac Jones Pro Day. So of course he did show up to, I think it was Trevor Lawrence's as well. So it could just be good scouting, but I'd personally like to see Mac Jones in a Patriots uniform this year. We'll see where that ends up going. A lot of speculation right now seems to be pointed towards San Francisco at 3. I don't see it personally. I think a lot of it is just a certain narrative that is trying to be hyped up for whatever reason, and then if he doesn't get drafted at 3, everyone's just going to say, okay, this is the guy this year that is falling, kind of like Brady Quinn was back in the day, or Aaron Rodgers. Everyone remembers the pictures of him sitting in the room, in the draft room, and just sitting there as everybody else is getting drafted. I don't know if that's kind of the narrative they're going for when he ends up falling, but I don't see Mac Jones going in at 3. So we'll see how it ends up playing out. Maybe San Francisco has other plans. Maybe this is the guy they were really looking for, but I personally just don't see it. And the other thing that a lot of people like to, knock him for, which it is founded, but it's the fact that he's limited athletically. So you're not going to get a rushing floor like a Trey Lance, Justin Fields, even Trevor Lawrence. They all kind of have some type of rushing upside to them where they can be mobile, scramble around the pocket, scramble out of the pocket, and kind of make plays with their feet. Mac Jones doesn't really do that. He is your true pocket passer, and that's really just who he is. And the last guy I wanted to talk about today is a little bit of a sleeper for most people. If you don't know him, you're going to know about him today. Kellen Mond out of Texas A&M. He's 6'3", 211 pounds. Last year in 10 games, he passed for 2,282 yards, 19 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. Top 3 arm strength in the class. You put the film on. Again, he's just a really strong arm. Makes a lot of throws into tight windows. And I didn't really notice him leaving any of his receivers hanging when it comes to throwing any kind of deep ball. Most of his throws were right on target, hitting his receivers in stride. So he has that going for him as well. He throws with great anticipation. A lot of the offense within Texas A&M seemed to be a lot of timing routes, and there was a good amount of quick throws in there. Like I said before, when he's throwing into tight windows, a lot of that is throwing quick slants, quick outs, stuff like that just is timing based. So he's on the same page with his receivers a lot of 3-step drop type throws, snap, quick, throw the ball. He was perfect as far as what I could tell from that standpoint. He also has a good amount of rushing upside to his game. He's a great athlete. He ran a 4.62 40-yard dash at his pro day, which is really good for a quarterback. And being in the SEC with Texas A&M, he was playing against the top competition. Like I said before with Mac Jones, you're playing against some of the best prospects that college has to offer, and he competed against that on a week-to-week basis. And being at Texas A&M, you're not necessarily getting the top recruits on your school, but you're of course playing against a lot better competition when you're facing LSU and Alabama and other teams like that. So he did manage to hold his own when it came to playing against other competition, while maybe not necessarily having quite as much weapons on his own side. So I do give him a good amount of credit for that. I think you can probably grab Kellen Mond in the late second, early third of your Superflex drafts. Hopefully he stays down in that area for his ADP. So this way it's, a really low risk grab that you can either stash at the end of your bench or on your taxi squad and just see what he does. He might not start right away, but at least if something either happens to the starter in front of him or he manages to somehow get the opportunity, continue to develop, see what you can do with him. Dak Prescott was a 4th round draft pick out of Texas A&M, and when he got drafted. So this could be the same kind of trajectory for Kellen Mond. I'm not saying, of course, that it's a lock, but you never know. He has some good tools that a coach can work with and can work in an offense. So it could be a nice little stash for your dynasty teams. Anyway, that's all I got for today, guys. Again, if you enjoy the content, give us a like on the YouTube video once this gets posted up. Leave a comment. Let us know what you want to see going forward. If you have any particular topic that you want discussed, let us know. Any kind of feedback, let me know. If you're listening on any podcast platform, be sure to give us a rating and let me know if you're digging the content or if you'd like to see anything in particular. So that's all I got for today, guys. I will catch you on the next one. Peace.